want to welcome you to the physician kickoff for the We Care, We Can campaign. This is a extremely important event for us because it kicks off the portion of the campaign where the hospital family of the Bowmanville Lake Ridge Hospital take part in the campaign and show their support. I want to, later on, we'll be bringing Dr. Osborne and Dr. Stone, who are the co-chairs of this initiative, to the podium. But I will act as your MC right now. And we have wonderful people to give you information on the campaign and the expansion. And then, of course, we'll open the floor to dialogue, and there's a ton of food, so eat lots of food and drink. So without further ado, I'd like to bring Cindy Davis to the podium, the President and CEO of Lake Ridge Health Corporation.
Thank you, Frank. I'm so happy to be here, and thanks so much for coming out tonight. I think I'm going to be really brief, but and turn it quickly over to Mark, because I think he probably has way more details that people will want to hear about tonight. But on behalf of our board and Lake Ridge Health, I just want to say how excited we are to be here, and that part of our master program that's really launching in Bowmanville. We have a master program that talks about redevelopment at all of our sites, and we're so excited that Bowmanville is the first part of our master plan to really launch the redevelopment. And we're excited to begin the project and think about what the future in Bowmanville is going to be like when we envision a brand new redesigned hospital. So there's a couple slides that I want to go over. If we could flip to the next one, please. I would say all those years in Glee Club with the Sisters of presentation, I should be able to sing as an interlude, but my apologies. I mostly lip sync so that I could get out of math class. But here we are. So, you know, it comes as no surprise that part of our plan really is around the growth and redevelopment that's happening throughout the entire Durham region. And we know that Clarington is an area of growth, and what it means is we need to be a responsive health system in order to be able to meet the demands both of today and into the future. And so we feel that we're well poised for the future. And for us at Lake Ridge Health, we really talk about a system of care. And every single site in the family of Lake Ridge Health is important. It will have a center of excellence, and it will create that system of care throughout the entire Durham region. Our ultimate goal is to make sure people don't have to leave the region for the care and services that they need. Next one, please. And again, Mark is going to talk more about the Bowmanville site, but I just want to talk about a couple things that are happening in general throughout Lake Ridge Health. It really is making sure that we have all of the pieces that leverage off each other so that we can provide the best care possible. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary with the Lake Ridge Gardens long-term care home that was located in Ajax Pickering, and that really is for us so important when we think about what had happened throughout COVID and our own experiences having gone into long-term care homes. We're really proud of how quickly this happened. I remind people from the time the shovel went in the ground till we moved the very first person in that building was 13 months. And we actually moved acute patients in first before the long-term care patients, which was at the 18-month mark. And I share that with the capital campaign because I think it's important to understand that once these projects start, we're absolutely committed to it. And I know that we're in competent, capable hands when I know the work that Mark and his team have done with so many of our redevelopment projects, and this one in particular. It has, what I would say, come in on time and on budget. The only one in Ontario of the 3 that were originally announced in the province. The other thing that we're doing when we talk about leveraging is we're getting ready to do the final redevelopment or development of a new standalone surgical center in North Pickering. And that is affectionately known as the Jerry Coughlin Health and Wellness Center. And it's probably fitting when we're here tonight thinking about philanthropy and fundraising that this was such a great person for the entire Durham region, and his foundation and him personally have given so much. This surgical center will be for the entire Durham region as well. So not only for the residents, but also for the surgeons that work throughout the Durham region will have the opportunity to do procedures in this center as well. And I think I'll go to the next one. And so I won't spend a lot of time on this. Mark is going to go into it in more detail. What I will say around the capacity is it's absolutely needed. Throughout our facilities, we're functioning at about 105% capacity in Lake Ridge Health. And when we have the ability to care for people and to promote that flow in and out of our system, it will serve us so much better. And so this Bowmanville project is extremely important to us in terms of bed capacity and how we'll be able to care for people. Next slide. The other thing that we talk about is this isn't also, you know, a project around redevelopment. It's also about redefining the care and how important it is for us to think about that continuum of care for people throughout the Durham region. And you know, what we know is that by building state-of-the-art facilities, we'll be able to compete for health human resources, which are vitally important for both the Clarington, Bowmanville site, but also really throughout the entire Durham region. Not on this slide, but I did want to share with you, we actually had 3 provincial ministers and your local MPP, Todd McCarthy, as well as Lauren Coe with us on Monday. We did an announcement at the Oshawa site around the exciting Queen's Lake Ridge Health Medical School. We will see our first intake of students in September of 2023, and I know Dr. Stone has been vital both in his role as our previous chief of staff and really the physician that's been leading that transition between Lake Ridge and Queens. And we're just so excited because not only do we need to build great facilities that will attract people, we need to make sure that we've got the health human resources and the people that want to live and work in this region. And as I was driving here, I'm absolutely reminded about how beautiful it is. So I think once we get those students on the ground, it'll be easy for them to understand how great a place this is to potentially live and work. Next one. And I think that's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Mark because he's going to talk about the details of the Bowmanville project.
Thanks, Cindy. You're going to adjust it for me? Thank you, sir. Okay, who's driving? Maddie? Okay, we'll go to the next slide, please. One more. So just a little bit about the master plan. The master plan is really what Lake Ridge Health needs for the next 25 years. So today, 879 beds is our total bed count. By 2041, we're projecting almost 1,800 beds is required, just based on demographic growth in the region and aging. Both of those have significant factors for utilization of a healthcare. So our plan is front-end loaded. I think Cindy may have mentioned, but right now we're operating at about, 105% capacity. That's not sustainable, and that's just gonna get worse over time. So the board made a conscious decision to look at how we increase capacity as quickly as we possibly can. That starts with Bowmanville, given that it was pretty far along in the planning process, followed immediately by the new hospital. 600 beds makes a big dent in the shortfall that we have. And then following that, looking at renovations and expansion at Ajax Pickering, which does require, as a linchpin to that, the new hospital to provide decanting space to enable what is a very constrained site to be redeveloped effectively. And then later on, looking at redeveloping Oshawa and some minor additions to Port Perry when it's required. So again, capacity is probably the buzzword for our master plan. Next slide, please. So Bowmanville redevelopment, you saw the slide from Cindy. I put the bold in the top. It is happening. I know it's been awaited for a long period of time. There's been a lot of talk in the community, but this is happening quickly. So 178 beds is what the building will be designed to have as capacity, and I'll talk a bit more about that for some of the physicians in the group who are interested in how that really works itself out. But basically, some renovations of the existing towers, the old part of the building, the two-story piece that goes along Liberty, that will be coming down when the new hospital is opened. New ambulatory care center, bringing dialysis to Bowmanville, starting with a 9-station dialysis clinic, which will be expanded to, Nicole, 18 over time as demand requires. A rooftop helipad, so we'll be bringing the helipad back to Bowmanville, especially since we'll have a larger hospital. There'll be more trauma cases and things that will touch down in Bowmanville and have to go to other hospitals. Resizing the emergency department to reflect the demographics and the visits that we're forecasting. And obviously a parking structure, because the new building, as you can see, takes up quite a bit of the physical plant or physical space on the site. The board has approved the functional program in January. We've had several major discussions with the Ministry of Health since then. Thank you, Nicole, for all your work. Infrastructure Ontario will be driving the project from a development perspective. They are pushing us very hard, and the ministry very hard, thankfully, because they want to start doing boreholes in the ground in May in order to meet the timelines of a construction starting in fall of 2025. We're looking at doing a proposal call for prime consultants, which is sort of the architectural team that will be basically working alongside us from the continued steps in planning all the way through to completion. And again, the timelines is May for that as well. RFQ for consortium builders in the early 2024 to identify who's in the marketplace who's interested, and then construction to begin in fall of 25. I have to say, Infrastructure Ontario has been a good ally in this process. Sometimes the Ministry of Health takes a very long time to do stuff, but having Infrastructure Ontario pushing this really has pushed the ministry and is pushing us, and I think we're comfortable with that, right, Nicole? But as long as we're pushing it, it is happening. Okay, next slide, please. So some service expansions that we're targeting at Bowmanville. Ambulatory care clinics. A wide range of clinics that we're going to be bringing to Bowmanville. Currently, there's not a lot of clinics in Bowmanville, and you would have to go to Oshawa or further west to get those types of clinics, but they include chronic disease management, infectious disease, wound clinics, geriatric service clinics, and certainly if anybody's really interested in those, please talk to Nicole afterwards. She can give you all the detail you possibly need. Surgical post-op and pre-op clinics, some women's and children's clinics, multi-care clinic, and some outpatient rehab space. We're also going to be expanding surgical procedures. There's a list there, but we're all looking at having ankle and foot surgery at some point in Bowmanville as a center of excellence. Again, this is really working with the surgical team to identify resources available to do this type of volume that is forecasted, but the capacity that we're designing is there to accommodate these types of cases and these expansions. And I mentioned the 9-bed nephrology dialysis clinic as well, which we're really excited about. Okay, next slide, please. So some volumes. Currently, we're at 78 beds at Bowmanville. Day of opening, and that's, don't get me started how the ministry does this, but day of opening is 136 beds. That's what the ministry is forecasting the demand to be at that point in time. That number is still under discussion. It may move a little higher because we are moving a year later than what is forecasted here, but that's something that we're working with the ministry. But as I mentioned, the ultimate capacity is 178 beds, which is the 2041 targeted capacity for Bowmanville. I mentioned dialysis, and Nicole helped me with the 18 up to expansion. Emergency department visits, you might look at those and say, those look understated. Well, I can tell you they are. The ministry has all kinds of archaic rules. One of them, this isn't broadcasted all over the world, is it? Okay, well, I can say it anyway, because they know it. I've said it to them, that's fine. They discount the CTAS 4 and 5s and assume there's no growth in CTAS 4 and 5s, which are the lowest care folks that show up in emergency. We all know that the emergency population that shows up every day, quite a number of those people are CTAS 4s and 5s. And how the ministry is expecting those people to be diverted is still a big unknown, as we all have talked about many times, Dr. Stone. But that is why those emergency departments visits are understated from what you would expect in terms of the growth of the community. However, we have put in enough scale in the emergency department to handle more than this based on having subspecialty areas within the emergency department. Nephrology, clinics, day surgery visits, endoscopies growth, diagnostics imaging is consummate with the size of the hospital bed and the bed counts that we expect. And then ambulatory visits certainly starting at 16,000, growing to about 22,000 over over the next 15 years. And this has been endorsed by the ministry, and this has formed the basis of our planning and the design that we've done to date. Okay. Inpatient bed maps, just as the types of beds that we're developing or planning to put into the site. Again, mostly med-surg beds, which are the core of what hospitals currently do. We're increasing the CCU capacity, thanks to Dr. Wax and his team for advocating for us and what the demand is for ICU, which is higher than what the ministry's standard parameters are, but we've managed to get them over that hurdle. Some CCC beds, and there's a note there about interim CCC beds, complex continuing care beds, apologies. Those 22 beds came to Bowmanville from Ajax when the Ajax Pickering Hospital developed the mental health inpatient unit. So those beds, in theory, from a geographic base, belong back out west. So when the new hospital is built or expansion at Ajax occurs, those 22 beds will be removed from the Bowmanville content and flipped back west where they belong, and then they'll be replaced with CC beds or med-surg beds accordingly. Okay. So some development highlights. All private accommodations. That's the new standard, and I'll be welcomed by many of us that work in the healthcare field that this is really the proper standard for caring for folks. We're planning to put in 22 isolation rooms. These will be scattered throughout the hospital with some in emergency, certainly some in ICU, and then at least one on each of the inpatient units. That will provide us improved infection control, as we certainly learned a lot about over the last 3 years. Focused a lot on patient experience and staff wellness. We're providing enhanced staff facilities, including a Learn type center. A Learn is like an education center that if you've ever been to Oshawa, you'll see it in the basement. So something that will really provide some benefits to staff and some training. This will also supplement and enhance our Queen's partnership that Cindy mentioned earlier. Multi-faith Indigenous healing garden. And again, the parking garage that's linked to the hospital for access to the site. Centralized ambulatory care. You saw that 16,000 visits. You heard Sami mention a number of different clinics. This will be in a centralized location. They won't be little clinics scattered all over the hospital. It'll be one ambulatory clinic with rotating specialties going through that space, so it'll really flex on the demand and the type of service being provided. We've also provided future space within the hospital. You saw that I saw 136 beds going to 178. How does that happen without having a major addition? It's a little bit of trickery, a little bit of mastery, but what we really needed to do was put in spaces in very selected areas where, for example, the emergency department can expand without having to put an addition on. Inpatient units like med-surg units would move into space that is currently or will be occupied at opening by administration or Frank's boardroom. So we're trying to be flexible because the ministry does not like shelled space for obvious reasons. It costs money and it doesn't really show well. So they try to push you one way and you've got to push it the other way. And I think we've done a really good job of designing it that way.
Thanks, Frank, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'll speak for a second and then hand over to Ed. So we're really excited to participate in the portion of the campaign that focuses on physician participation. We understand that when the docs get involved and really show an important interest in this effort, that it stimulates the community in many ways, and gives them confidence about what it is we're doing. So our goal now will be kind of a two-pronged approach, one with a focus on the physicians who work in the hospital, who are critical to this in terms of building energy and engagement. These are the folks who will be coming to the building and will be delivering care to patients in the building. The folks who will be depending on the equipment and all the the IT and all the things we just heard about. And so what we want to do then is to engage all of those groups of physicians, orthopods like Dr. Schauber, who's here, is our head of orthopedics, and all of the other divisions who will be working there to generate interest and energy around the idea of supporting this. Because there's many ways to support, as you know. You can support generally, to the campaign, but you can also take a focused approach, where if you decide you want specific types of, like equipment that's needed for regular care, orthopedic care, imaging care, etc., that there are different ways to be driven. So that's one piece. The other piece is that also to build some energy among the community-based physicians, those who don't do so much hospital work, but who depend on the care that the hospital delivers for their patients. So that'll be the docs, really referring to. So I think that's our work in front of us, and we really appreciate the opportunity to participate with Frank and their whole team, and with Lake Ridge, in this exciting first phase of the master plan, which is centered right here in Bowmanville. So Ed.
So Ed Osborne. So when they asked me to get involved, it was a no-brainer for me. I've been in town forever. My first experience that I remember is a 50-year-old kid at the emergency department of Bowmanville. So you can see it straddles quite a few years. I think Tony's spoken to a lot of it, getting the physicians excited about it. I'm excited because I now hear details about the development. I've heard about it for years, worked the urge, heard about it changing. Now I see the details. How can't you get excited about that? And I think that's where I'm coming from. My physician colleagues certainly can ask questions, and I can tell them why I'm excited about it. Why wouldn't you want a new building where you can work state-of-the-art? The equipment that you can get, and you can actually advocate for that as well. Over the years, I've been lucky enough to work in Bowmanville mainly, but I've also worked out of Oshawa and Ajax Pickering, even up until this year where I fill in. So for me, seeing the whole Lake Ridge family and having a redevelopment and a build like this is something that I've been waiting for a long time. I'm happy to put my voice to it. As Tony said, we also straddle the community, so we work in the buildings around the hospital. We work with our colleagues that actually work mainly in the community, but their patients are seen at the hospital. So again, it's one of those things where it's the whole community that has to get going, and certainly happy to put my voice to that and get the physician colleagues up and running and get them excited about it. Getting them back into all of the surgery that they've listed here, the dialysis. I heard that. I thought that is awesome. Essentially, my patients have waited for that for years. And really at this point, the timeline, it's very tight, it's very doable, but it's very exciting as well because we'll see it shortly. So thank you for everyone here, and certainly Tony and I are always available to talk about this and get the ball going. So thanks very much.
I have the last word. Thank you, Dr. Stone, and thank you, Dr. Osborne, Cindy, and Mark for joining us again. I think you'll see this team get together a few presentations moving forward as we start to move the campaign forward. As the team or team presenters said to you today, this is it. We're down the final stretch. We got 24 months to go. You've got a brand new redevelopment, expanded hospital, practically a brand new hospital coming to the community you've waited for over 30 years. Some of you in this room started this work way before I even got here. And so I'm just very privileged to be in this community, very privileged to be helping all of you, and very privileged to be working with the physicians of Lake Ridge to make this possible. So thank you for coming this evening. Please, the food is open. There's drink. If you have questions, take it. If not, enjoy eating. Thank you.